All right, guys, coming to the mat, we're going to lay back nice and flat on the mat. We're going to find that little gap between the lumbar spine and the floor. Pull the rib cage down and in. You could even have your hands on your rib cage, and we'll do a nice diaphragmatic breathing set to begin with. So having your hands here either on the rib cage or maybe a little bit lower towards your waist, but you do want to feel your rib cage expand. We're going to inhale, and you want to feel the expansion of your rib cage of your belly as it pushes out to the side. So big inhale, breathing in through the nose. And then exhale. Use the abdominals, use all the muscles in the torso to help push that air out of the lungs, contracting, and then pulling the rib cage tighter and knitting it into the center. So you feel that close knit pulling into your center line. Nice and slow as we inhale and breathe, feeling that expansion through the torso as the rib cage and the belly opens and expands out to the sides. And then exhale as you feel the pressure of the abdominals and you pushing the air out of your lungs, kind of pull everything tight to the center. And we'll do 3 more. We'll take our hands down to the hip bones. You could also go nice and long with the arms down by your side. If you don't want to track what the hips and the low back are doing, we'll bring our right leg up to tabletop position, and on that inhale, we're going to find the floor with the foot hinging at the hip, and exhale to bring it back to tabletop. Nice and smooth to let the leg glide within the hip for those single leg lowers. Drawing the belly to the back, knitting the ribs in, especially on that deep exhale as you bring the right leg to tabletop. And right foot rests to the mat. We're going to bring our left leg up to tabletop position, draw the shoulders down, reset the torso, and inhale, hinging at the hip, maintaining the bend in that left knee as the foot finds the mat. Nice and smooth movement of the leg from the hip. And left foot rests back to the mat. Hands return once again to the rib cage, to the belly, to your waist, and we're going to do 3 more of those nice big expansion breaths. As we inhale, letting the rib cage, the abdominals, kind of push everything out. The waist expands to the side, and we inhale through the nose. And exhale out through the mouth. And we'll bring both legs to tabletop as we transfer our hands back to the hips or down to our side and into our leg changes. Drawing the rib cage in, neck is nice and long as the shoulders pull apart down the back for the collarbone to spread wide. And we inhale to hinge at the hip on the right and then switch to the left. That nice, smooth, simultaneous movement between each leg. Smoothing out that glide of the leg and the hip as you draw the rib cage in, drawing the belly to the back. We work 3 more each side. And then feet rest back to the mat. Last set, of those nice big belly breaths, that diaphragmatic breathing. Hands to the rib cage, to the belly, so you can feel the expansion on the inhale. Fingers are going to interlace, and we're going to bring our hands behind the head to support the head and the neck. On our next exhale, we fold across the midribs at the bra line to peel the shoulder blades up off of the mat, bringing our chest up, our line of sight between the knees and thighs. You're pausing for that breath before returning on the exhale back to the mat, keeping that nice tight knit of the rib cage and the belly pulled in tight as you reset to the mat. We exhale for our movement as we lift and flex, pausing for that inhale, and exhale slow to reset back to the floor. Maintaining that little gap between the small of the back and the floor. No movement in the hips or the legs or the low back as we come up into that strong chest lift. Letting the head fall back, rest back into your hands, so we keep the ear stacked over the shoulder. The head doesn't crane forward. And last 2. Nice and slow on that reset. Back to the mat. Hands come down nice and long down by your side. You can walk your feet maybe a little closer towards your sit bones for our bridges or pelvic curls. Pelvic curls if you're going to articulate the spine on and off the mat. Bridges if you're just going to lift the hips up and down, keeping that neutral spine. On the exhale, we tilt the hips back for the imprint for the pelvic curl. And then begin to press through the feet. Feel the engagement at the back of the legs as we lift the hips and send the knees forward towards the toes, creating movement and hinging at the ankle. Pausing for a breath at the top, and then the next exhale, we scoop and curl. Lacing the spine back down to your mat, one piece at a time, rolling all the way through back towards the tailbone. Keeping that connection at the inner thigh as you bridge, as you curl up and down. We want to restrict the sway of the hips from side to side as the spine is lifting and lowering from the mat. One more bridge, one more pelvic curl. and resetting back to a nice neutral spine, back to the mat. Hands can stay long at your side or rest at the hips for that feedback of the hips and the low back as we work our single leg extensions out low over the mat. We'll float that right foot to tabletop. I'm going to activate the back of the left leg by pushing the foot down against the floor. And on the inhale, we send that right leg forward, out nice and long across the mat. And then slow as the knee bends, we're drawing the heel back towards the hip. You could drag the foot across the mat, heel or toe. And we inhale to lengthen and extend the leg. Having the hands resting on your hip bones gives you some nice feedback to see if you're trying to achieve that leg extension by shifting the pelvis or the back out of position. We want to keep that alignment, hips to ribs to chest and shoulders, that nice alignment, even spacing between the right and the left side. So there's no side to side flexion or movement of the hips and the low back. We're pressing and lengthening that right leg out nice and long. Finding that full extension, that full length of the leg. We'll draw the right foot back, reset it to the mat in line with the sit bone. Taking a moment to reset the upper body, and we'll float the left foot as we press down with the right foot to engage the back of the right leg. And on the inhale, we send that left leg out nice and long, straightening and lengthening that leg. Feel the quad engage. And then bend the knee, draw the heel back towards the hip. And then we reach and lengthen. Slow as we bend. Reaching out far across the mat, feeling the leg fully straighten. Maybe even pausing with the leg straight to see if you can push it and lengthen it more before rebending that knee and drawing the heel back towards the hip. And we'll work about 2 more. The left foot will reset and rest back to the mat. Fingers will interlace, bringing our hands back behind the head to support the head, neck, and chest. And we'll bring legs to tabletop position, hugging through inner thigh. On the exhale, we fold at the mid-ribs to lift the head, neck, and chest. Pausing for the breath in the chest lift. And then exhale, knitting the ribs in tight as we reset the upper body back to the mat. Feeling the even weight between the hips and that deep fold at the bra line, at the mid-ribs. Two more chest lifts, holding that strong tabletop position as you fold and lift. And upper body resets back to the mat. Arms come out to a T position, palms up towards the ceiling. And we're going to twist through the mid-ribs to take our legs to the right, hips to the right. The low back is transferring with the legs and the hips as we twist and rotate through the mid-ribs. Pause for a breath or two here as you anchor that left shoulder down against the mat. Pull the ribs in. And then next exhale, we come back to center. Inhale, legs, hips, and low back. Twist to the left, moving across the mid-ribs, and we pause. Right shoulder blade connects to the mat, and we press to the floor through that upper right side, and then exhale, back to center. Nice and slow, using that inhale to shift and twist to the side, and we pause. To connect to the inner thighs, pull the rib cage in, press that left upper side to the mat, and then next exhale, back to center. Twisting to the left, we plant and connect the right shoulder blade, the right side of the chest, the rib cage down against the mat, and exhale, center. We'll increase our speed here. Inhale as we tip to the side, and very next exhale, we move back to center. Rolling from hip to hip, twisting side to side across the midline through the bra line. Being mindful of the rib cage wanting to flare, the back wanting to overextend. Last one each side. And we'll rest the feet back to the mat. Legs extend nice and straight. And arms are going to reach up overhead, not all the way to the floor. I'm going to keep them slightly elevated to be able to seat the ribs down and in. It'll help me with the initial chest lift and the roll up. Arms come forward as we lift the head, neck, and chest. Fold at the mid-ribs and curling and rolling up. Finding that rounding in the low back, that curl of the spine. Reaching out nice and long, feeling the stretch along the low back as you curl forward. But shoulders are sliding down the back. Neck stays nice and long. And next exhale, we begin to articulate and curl back. Drawing the head back towards the shoulders. So we keep the craning of the head and the neck out of the movement as we reset to the floor, piece by piece, nice and slow. Rib cage pulls down, chest pulls down and in as the arms flow back overhead. And inhale, arms flow forward, nice and slow. Folding deep at the mid-ribs. Seeing how slow you go for that extra abdominal muscle engagement. Curling and rolling forward and stretching out nice and long over the legs. As if a string is pulling the crown of the head forward, we stretch and tilt back, gliding the shoulders down, articulating back along the spine, each little piece. Pressing and stretching the legs long to create that tension in our lower half to support the movement and make the movement ultimately easier. Drawing the abdominals in, stretching through the back by pulling the core through to the spine. And curling back piece by piece. Neck stays long, shoulders glide back and down. We tilt and curl. Arms reach long overhead just to stretch. One more breath as you knit the ribs in. Pull the abdominals to the back. And we'll bring our hands back to our hip. We're going to bend that left knee, place the foot flat to the mat. I'm going to work some single leg lifts. Starting by floating that right foot, right leg up off the mat. Nice straight leg. We're going to exhale to lift the right leg up and inhale to lower. Hands to the hip allows you to track the pelvis. Keep the low back from flexing to the mat. We don't want to tilt the hips back to allow the leg to get higher. We want that leg to move freely in the hip as it lifts on the exhale and inhale as it lengthens and extends down to the mat. Reaching the leg out nice and far, pressing down through that left foot. One more. And right knee bends, placing the foot back to the mat in line with the sit bone. We'll extend and lengthen that left leg out long and strong, always maintaining that tension in the leg from the hip through the foot. And we exhale to lift the left leg and inhale to lower. Maintaining that little space at the small of the back as the leg lifts. No flexion in the lumbar spine. And 3, 2, and 1. Bending that left knee, bringing the foot back to the mat. Legs return to tabletop position. Fingers will interlace. We'll bring our hands back behind our head to support the head, neck, and chest. And on the exhale, we fold at the mid-ribs to lift. And legs extend forward, out, nice and long across the mat. Draw the legs, the knees back to tabletop, and slow to reset the upper body back to the floor. Deep fold at the mid-ribs for that chest lift, and reach and extend, lengthening the legs as you pull the belly in tight. Adding those double strong leg extensions, the legs move out strong, forward, out over the mat. Last 2. And we'll bend the knees, place the feet back to the floor once again. Separating the feet sits bones distance apart. We're going to bring our right leg up to tabletop position. Extend that right leg up towards the ceiling. I'm going to work a nice little down circle with this right leg. We inhale to lower that straight long leg down towards the mat. A bit of a rotation to twist the leg in the hip to reach out, back up and around to the top. Inhale as the leg lowers. Exhale as you sweep out and around, back to the top. Take the movement slow. Moving too fast is going to twist the back. The left leg, the left side will have to try to do a lot more work to support and stabilize your body as that right leg moves out to the side and back around to the top. One more. And right knee bends, we place the foot back to the mat, taking a moment to reset the upper body. Left leg to tabletop, and we straighten that left leg to the ceiling, and we inhale to lower. Exhale to twist the leg in the hip and sweep it up and around to the top, creating that external rotation, that twist and movement of the leg in the hip. And we're twisting the leg at the hip from the thigh and the hip, not the foot, the ankle twisting or shearing at the knee. We want the thigh to twist and rotate in the hip to create that external rotation. One more down circle. And we'll bend that left knee, place the foot back to the mat. Fingers will interlace once again, bringing the hands behind the head. We're adding our chest lift back to the movement. We're going to fold and lift, head, neck, and chest. Coming up, and we're going to hold our chest lift nice and strong. Deep fold at the mid-ribs, and then we'll bring legs to tabletop. Legs and tabletop move forward, out over the mat, and straight legs open, close, return to tabletop. We'll maintain our chest lift as our legs continue to move in and out of tabletop. Legs need to stay nice and straight for the opening and for the closing before returning back to that bent knee. Last 3. And we'll drop the feet to the mat, and with control, lower the upper body back to the floor. Separating our feet once again, sits bones distance apart, hands to the hips if you'd like, or down by the side of the body. We'll bring our right leg up to tabletop, press into that left foot, feel the engagement at the back of the left leg. Right leg comes up towards the ceiling, reaching up nice and long, and we're going to twist the leg and the hip to open out to the side, come down and in, and up the center. Working our up circle. Twist the leg and the hip before circling out and around. Creating that rotation of the leg and the hip. Good anchoring on the left side from the shoulder blade down to the hip and pressing into the foot. And right knee bends and the foot returns to the mat. Take a moment to reset from hip to shoulder. And left leg to tabletop, extending that leg straight up towards the ceiling. Find the alignment at the hip, ribs to shoulders, and the leg twists in the hip to rotate out, circles out and down on the inhale, and exhale up through the center. Keep that pressure on the right side. We don't want the right leg leaning out to the right or twisting. We want to keep that even weight as best we can from hip to hip. Two more. And we'll bend the knee, rest the foot, back to the floor. Fingers interlace. Hands return behind the head to support the head, neck, and chest. Pull the rib cage in, slide the shoulder blades down the back, and we exhale to fold at the mid-ribs, lifting into that chest lift, letting the head press back, fall back into our hands, and legs to tabletop. Legs move forward, out over the mat, and we're going to cross leg over leg. ankle over ankle. Keeping the leg nice and straight, not bending the knee, reaching the leg out of the hip as we work that crossing. Drawing the rib cage in, pulling the belly to the back, stretch the legs nice and long. Rest the head back in the hands, nice deep fold at the mid ribs. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Bending the knees, drawing the knees in towards the chest. Hug the shins, the knees to the chest. Letting the head and shoulders rest back to the floor. Rocking a little bit from side to side. And slow to unwind with bent knees and feet to the mat, just down underneath the sit bones or in line with the sit bones. Arms are nice and long down by our side. We're going to lift the heels up off of the mat and work back into our shoulder bridge, our pelvic curl. On the exhale, we're going to tilt the hips back, peel and curl up off of the mat, one piece at a time, bringing the hips up nice and high, sending the knees forward towards the toes. Try not to overactivate the arch of the foot as we're up in this bridge, and then slowly we curl down, piece by piece. Rolling along the spine, nice and slow, feeling each segment of the back, moving along the mat. Finding that nice articulation along the back. We're going to peel up on this next bridge and we're going to hold our bridge. Ribs pull in, drawing the belly to the back. Glutes are engaged and we're going to lower the heels and lift the heels. Maintaining the height of the hips, squeezing the glutes more as the heels drop to the mat. Heels lower, press the hips up slightly, pull into your glutes, into your midline, and heels lift. Last 3. And with high heels, we curl and articulate and roll down along the spine, nice and slow. And we'll stretch that right leg out nice and long across the mat. Flex at the ankle, pull the toes back towards the shin to stretch the calf. And we're gonna, as if it's a windshield wiper, we're gonna twist the leg in to 10 o'clock, if you're on a clock face. Right leg from the hip with the toes and the foot pulled back is going to twist to 12 and then out to 2 o'clock. Allowing the leg to twist in the hip. Internal rotation, twist out to external rotation. Drawing the top of the foot back towards the shin. The leg is moving, upper leg from the hip. The lower leg follows suit. And we'll slide that right heel back, bend the knee, place the foot flat in line with the sit bone, and we'll send that left leg out nice and long across the mat, stretching it long, and then dorsiflex at the ankle. Draw the top of the foot back towards the shin, and then the whole leg from the hip internally rotates. Left leg internally rotates to 2 o'clock, and externally rotates out to 10. Being very mindful that that movement is coming from the hip joint, especially not from the knee since it's a stability joint, or from the foot or the ankle. You want the foot and the ankle at 12 o'clock pulling back and not twisting side to side. Whatever the upper leg, whatever the thigh will give you for that rotation is all that the rest of the leg will allow for. And we'll reach both legs out nice and long. Point the toes. Legs are lengthening. Arms are going to come up overhead. Not all the way back to the mat. Floating still so we can pull the chest, the ribs down and in. And we're rolling up. Arms flow forward. Chin to chest. We fold at the mid ribs. And curl and roll up. Drawing the belly to the back as we reach and curl forward, reaching out nice and long, stretching out over the legs, drawing the shoulders down away from the neck, away from the ears. We reach forward strong out over the legs. Pressing the back of the knees down to the floor as we stretch the legs and the torso further and farther. And we curl up and restack the spine. We're going to flip over face down to work some extension both of the legs and the hip as well as the back. Moving to a face down position, we're going to start with our leg extensions. We're going to rest our forehead to the back of the hands, which are up in front of us, to allow the forehead to rest. Lengthen the neck and draw the shoulders down. Working our single leg extension, we're going to start with that right leg. On the inhale, that right leg is going to lift and extend, and exhale to lower. Floating the foot up off of the floor. We want to keep the knees straight, stretch the leg longer. It's reaching out to the end, past the mat, as it lifts to help you gain that tension up the back of the leg. So you have that strong tension moving the leg up and down. Keeping that tension in the muscles of the leg keeps the pressure off the low back. And right leg rests. Take a moment to reset. Maybe tuck the tailbone, soften that extension in the low back. And we lengthen the left leg, float the toes, and inhale. Left leg lifts. And slow to lower on that exhale. Inhale, left leg lifts and reaches not only up, but stretches out and off the mat, as if you're trying to drag the leg out of the hip. Shoulders stay sliding down, ribs and abdominals stay knitted in as that left leg glides. Pressing the front of the hips down to keep the flexion and the extension, out of the low back as we lift the leg and extend from the hip alone. And left leg lowers to the mat. Arms are going to come down along the side of the body, reaching towards the knees, towards the feet. And on the inhale, head, neck, chest lifts. We brace through the belly, through the back, and the abdominals, engaging our glutes and our legs as we hold that lift of the upper body. And we exhale to lower, keeping the face floating off of the floor. And inhale to lift. Finding that fold at the mid-ribs, just below the shoulder blades, as we bring the chest and the head up off of the mat. Long, strong legs out the back as you engage the glutes, Knit in tight through the ribs, pull your belly to your back, feel the extensors up the spine, engage for that extension of the upper back only. Triceps at the back of the upper arm should be firing, so you're pulling the shoulders down, stretching the arms longer and straighter. One more. And hands come back to the front, forehead rests to the back of the hands. Realign the torso and the body back on the mat. Bracing through the belly as you pull your ribs and abdominals in. On the inhale, both legs are going to lift and extend from the hip, and slow to lower on the exhale. Try not to shrug as the legs lift. It's easy to bring your shoulders up into your neck, close to your ears. We want to keep the shoulders drawing down the back, even with the hands above the shoulder line, to keep as much tension in our core and in our abdominals to protect and stabilize our low back as these legs lift into hip extension. Three more. Hands come by the chest, the toes are going to curl under, we're going to peel up, curl and sit back, hips to heels, reaching out nice and long overhead, stretching out long. Your hips are reaching back over the heels as your arms and spine are stretching forward, creating that nice long stretch. One more breath, and then next exhale, we're going to curl up. Restack the back. Nice and tall, nice and long, sitting up tall over the legs. Arms come up overhead, fingers interlace, and we reach up and over to the right. Coming back to center, we stretch and lengthen to the ceiling and over to the left. One more each side, planting your hips down so there's no lift of the hips side to side. Back to center, and arms rest to your side. All right, guys, nice work today.